Hello everybody, this is Goddessness and it is the 5th day of Inktober. I must say I'm pretty proud of how far I've been able to get so far, but I'm on holidays at the moment, so I've got all day, like every day of the week to work on this, and of course it doesn't actually take that long, but I'm not sure how I'm gonna go when school starts again. But with that aside, the prompt for today was long, and I'm just gonna say that's a really weird prompt. Like, my friends and I've got some friends who are drawing Inktober as well, and we were talking about it, and none of us knew what to do either. But I mean, eventually I got the idea that I wanted to have something with like a really long tail. So I've drawn this little robot. There's nothing really that special about the robot. It's kind of just like a little dome sort of thing with wheels, and it's got this really long power cord attached to it, and like the plug's unplugged, just because I couldn't be bothered drawing in a plug, I guess. Plus, I like the way it looks when it's just lying there, and it's just really long, and it kind of just unravels across the page. And this was a pretty simple illustration compared to the other ones, and I didn't really do that much for the composition. Like, I had the robot as a focal point, and obviously the cord would lead you right to that. But I felt like it still wasn't quite strong enough, so afterwards I added in this sort of like a circle around it, and originally I was just going to fill it in with ink, but I've actually been studying Zentangles at the moment, and I have no interest in Zentangles, but I mean, I've spoken about like trying to do details and having them really unoriginal in previous videos, so if you haven't seen them, basically I really like pens because you can add in a lot of detail, but a lot of the time when I try and add in detail, like I try and do patterns, except that all of my patterns are really boring. They're just like stripes, and that's all. Like, if you want a good idea of this, maybe take a look at day 1, which I've got a video for. So I borrowed this Zentangle book from the library, and even though I don't do Zentangles, it was really cool because it had a lot of different patterns which I could try out. So I just put in a really simple pattern in the background later on the circle to try and draw the viewer's eye to the robot. And because it's called an angular pattern, it also creates like contrast between the rest of the drawing, because the robot is quite rounded and the cord is really loopy, so that it creates a lot of round shapes as well. At the moment I'm just detailing the robot, but you'll see me adding in the pattern in a second. And then I just overlay some ink as well. I had a bit of trouble with the ink today because it was really hard to do a flat wash, and well, I don't really have much experience with watercolor or ink. Like, I've tried it a little bit, but I guess I never really have the right materials, so I used like pretty bad paper. Like, it's still watercolor paper, but it's not like high quality or anything, and my watercolor set's like against watercolor set. And I mean, the paper I'm working on at the moment it's just sketchbook paper. Like, I literally made this book out of pages from my sketchpad. So I guess that could affect it, but I think what you need to do to get flat washes, I've never really tried it, but I think you probably have to wet the paper first and then add it so that it sort of spreads before it dries up. But anyway, I really liked the effect of adding in the circle though. It looks like at the end of like Looney Tunes videos where like on the end scene they just like have like a black screen and there's just left with a little circle. I don't know, it's what it reminds me of anyway. So my process with this, I don't know, tell me if you don't want me to explain my process in everyone, because guess what, it's exactly the same as before. I just started with a pencil sketch underneath, which is not strictly speaking part of Inktober, but it really helps me. Today my pencil sketch was like, generally my sketch is just a rough idea, and I add in the detail with ink afterwards, but I got a bit carried away in my pencil sketch. I mean, it's not like there was much detail to add anyway. It's quite a simple drawing. It only took me around 20 minutes. But basically the pencil sketch was exactly what I drew with the ink. I just added a bit more shading on the robot. So yeah, I'll have to work on that a bit so it's a bit so that I'm kind of doing mostly ink and not relying too much on pencil, but because I'm just starting with ink, I think it's okay for now. Maybe things will be different next year. So I am using a B pencil. It's the Statelab brand, but it doesn't really matter which brand you use, honestly. Like, this one was just cheap. And for inking, I used mostly an Artline 0.3, and they have two kind of, Artline sort of has two kind of variations. This one's the water resistant drawing system one. And then for the patterns in the circle, which you just saw me adding, I was using a Sig Millennium 0.1 micron pen. And for the ink I was using black Chinese ink, but don't ask me the brand because it's in Chinese and guess what, I can't read it. And I think that's about all the materials I used. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. If you liked it, please be sure to subscribe, comment, and if you really want to, you can consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.